10 o'clock, and I'm calling the regular meeting of the Township of Frontenac Islands to order. On October the 14th, we begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place for the first peoples and their ancestors who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the Township of Frontenac Islands is committed to working with Indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue the united path of reconciliation. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest in general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll now move into a closed session.
Moved by Councillor Halton, seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunders, that council adjourn to form council in closed session regarding Municipal Act Section 239C, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, specifically a matter pertaining to negotiations involving transportation service.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay, I see you people on the other. Okay, so we're going to resume our open session, and we have.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by Deputy Mayor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Halton, that council direct staff to proceed as instructed during the closed session in accordance with the discussions.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're at the presentations. We got KPMG 2024 audited financial statements for the Township of Frontenac Islands, as well as the Frontenac Islands Trust Fund. And they're all in the draft position for the statements. Correct? Okay, so we have Katie Mahone. Correct?
That's correct. And thank you.
TV
Unmute,
volume.
please.
No, Angelique, TV volume or computer volume.
We'll get you shortly.
No, it's your computer.
Keep talking, then we'll know.
I was gonna say, I feel like I have to keep talking. So okay, you know when you can hear me. Sounds like you
Good.
can. I see some thumbs up. Perfect. Well, thank you for having me here today to present the draft financial statements and the audit findings report, so we can go through the audit, its findings, the financial statements, and then look for approval to put a lid on the fiscal 2024 financial year and be able to move into 2025. Before we hop into the report, just a quick housekeeping item. I'm going to see if I have access to share my screen here. It looks like I do, so just give me 1 second here. I'm going to share it so we're all looking at the same thing. I think that should be up now. And just as a note, with my screen shared, I can't see everyone's faces. So if there are any questions as we go through, please come off mute and ask, or certainly we'll have some time at the end of the presentation as well for any questions. So with that, I think we can hop into the report. I know you have a packed agenda today. So we'll start with our audit highlights, which is our executive summary of the report. You can see we have a couple different colors up on the screen, the toggle. So the black means no items to note, and the pink means there's some additional findings or observations noted in the report. So each of these items we will go through in more detail, and I will touch on them at a high level. But again, if there are questions, please feel free to ask as we go along. So as of today, and as of the date we had sent this report, which was middle of September there, we are fully and substantially complete the audit. So all we have left to do is, is everything, you can still hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. So we are substantially complete the audit, and all we have left to do is have our discussions here today and look for approval. Sorry, I'll pause.
I just want to ask you a question there on your previous page, with all the highlights there. Like, there's a lot of red zones in on that page. Should we be worried about all these red zones?
Absolutely not. So all of the red zones, they're they're really just toggles to say either there's no matters to report, so there's nothing, further in the report to note, or there's some additional information. It's not a
Red flag.
black is good, red is bad situation. It's just what, there's more information to click on these hands and it'll link you to those extra pages. All of the items that have the toggle on, we will go through. So as we go through the report, you'll see it is a very clean audit report. And the items we have noted are really kind of the standard audit communications that were required to present to those charged with governance, being council here today. So definitely no cause of concern. Very standard.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay. So maybe just wrapping up the status. So we are substantially complete, minus getting the approval from council today. I do want to make a quick comment on timing, just noting we are in October. So we did complete the majority of the audit in June with the finance team. And I would say we completed, if not 90%, very close to 90% of the audit. We just had a few outstanding items to clean up over the summer, but with various vacation schedules, unfortunately, we kept missing each other. And then that pushed us in, kind of to early September to get everything wrapped up to be able to send over the reports. So us being in October, I know it's not, great timing with a December 2024 year end, but I did just want to make a comment that the vast majority of the audit was completed in June. And really it was just those vacation schedules that pushed us, to the other side of the summer. So looking forward to next year, we plan to keep a kind of late spring, early summer timeline, but expect to be able to have everything wrapped up before the summer, so we won't have to be pushed into the fall here. Again, just in making that comment to note that even though we're a little bit later in the year, again, no cause for concern. And as we go through the report, you will see it is a very clean audit opinion and a clean audit report. So then getting into the meat of the report, starting on page 6, we have a couple updates from the audit plan that we would have seen in previous years, mainly attributed to some new standards that were required to be adopted. So every few years, the Accounting Standards Board does put out new standards. Again, they are mandatory to be adopted, so they are not optional. We had the big one last year for fiscal 2023 being asset retirement obligations. And then this year we had 3 more ones come into play. So last year and this year, a bit heavy on the standards. What that's coming from though is we had a bit of a pause. So for the 4 years over the pandemic and a couple of years post-pandemic, no standards came out. So we had last year and this year being a bit of some catch-up years. And you'll see after this 2025, we have no new standards coming in. And then we only have 1 coming in 2026. So the last 2 years have been a bit heavy on the new standards coming in, but again, that's really an impact kind of post-pandemic there. And after this, it should be back to normal timing of the new standards to be adopted. What that means, though, specifically for your township this year, you can see there were 3 new accounting standards, one around revenue, one around public-private partnerships, or they're better known as P3s, and then the last one around purchased intangibles. The good news is that all of these standards that were adopted did not have any impact on your set of financial statements. So we had to do the required documentation in the audit file, but after going through all the requirements and having the discussions with management, happy to note that the standards did not have any material impact on the statements. And then the next 2 slides here, I've skipped down to page number 8, which is around materiality. So materiality is a very important audit concept. It is foundational to how we plan and execute our audit. Materiality is the level that we determine as auditors, at which point the user's understanding or information of the financial statements would be impacted. How we come up with this level of materiality is based on Canadian auditing standard guidelines. So for a not-for-profit public sector entity like yourself, anywhere from 0.5 to 3% of either revenues or expenses would be the benchmark we would set it at. We also look to see whether there's been a history of significant adjustments, a history of any errors, history of disagreements, items like that. Certainly none of those are the case. So consistent with your peer group, we have put you at the top of that range, similar to last year as well, which is a materiality of 200,000. A quick note, that is total materiality. So that is the amount that we would as we go through the audit, we would accumulate any potential misstatements. Once we hit that $200,000 mark, that's at the mark we would no longer be able to give a clean audit opinion. As we go through the report, you'll see that we only had one uncorrected item, which relates to actually a correction in the current year of an item last year. It was only about $41,000, so very much well under that materiality threshold. Similar to what we've had last year, nothing material came to our attention through any of our audit procedures. From a risk assessment summary, so this risk assessment would be very similar to what you would be used to seeing from previous years. Last year, we did have the new asset retirement obligation financial statement area come into play, but that was in last year, so that will now be normal course moving forward. You can see all of the blue dots have a risk rating of base, which is the lowest risk rating there is. There is base, elevated, and significant. But what you will see is the top line there, the orange dot, the management override of controls, is noted as a significant risk rating. It also has the check mark under risk of fraud. So I always like to preempt this question, because I would say this is probably the single most common question I get around the management override being at the significant level and having that check mark under fraud. This is a requirement from the Canadian auditing standards. So this is nothing that's unique to your organization. It's what is referred to as a presumed fraud risk, meaning that each and every audit in Canada needs to flag management override of controls as a significant risk and a fraud risk, so that in doing that, we build it into our audit plan accordingly and are able to plan audit procedures to mitigate that risk down to an acceptable level. So we have this next slide, slide 10, that goes into a bit more detail about how we do that. So again, the top part really just explains a bit more that it is a presumed fraud risk. Again, nothing unique to your organization. And then the bottom part is our response. At a very high level, we get your GL for the full year. We run it through a software system using some high risk criteria that we determine. It generates a sample. We then take that sample and vouch it back to the supporting documentation to make sure everything looks as it should. And certainly the takeaway for the meeting today is the bottom line of we did not uncover any issues as a result of these procedures. So everything looked good on this front. The next two slides are screenshots of the statement of financial position and the statement of operations, along with some notes and some highlights on the side. I realize my screen's probably pretty small for those of you in chambers, so I will just touch on some of the items briefly, starting with the financial assets. The cash and investment position, quite strong. You will see the cash this year versus last year has gone up quite a bit. That's really just the timing of cash inflows and cash outflows. One of the big items that we saw, we can actually see it in your financial liabilities as well, with the obligatory reserves. So the OSIF funds and the gas tax funds not being fully spent last year and being saved for 2025 means that those funds stay in the cash account and earn some interest. So is there a question?
Question for Councilor Ackley.
Does this involve Frontenac County too, or this audit? Because we do send them money, right?
I'll let her
Pardon?
answer.
Does this involve Frontenac County too? Because we're auditing us,
Yeah,
like as the islands, but we do give them money for stuff, so
it's mentioned.
extension.
No, it's
or-
mentioned. It's mentioned. I'll let her answer on that.
Sorry, is the question, are the financial statements, do they include the county of Frontenac?
Yeah, like we give them money for our ferry and other stuff. Is this all in here? Like? No, do we see what they spend our money on?
Katie, I think further on down in your financial statements and that there's an area that talks about the money that's transferred over to the county, including reserve funds for the ferries and things of that nature. I think that's what
Yeah.
the counselor's trying to get at.
Yes, that's correct. The financial statements that are up here include all of the ins and outs, cash inflows, cash outflows of the islands, which would include any funds that get transferred to and from the county.
Perfect. Okay. And just while we're on this page, I just have one quick question under the non-financial assets. On the right-hand side, decrease in tangible capital assets driven by additions of 3.77 thousand million KM.
Yes,
offset.
that was a typo. I fixed it on the one on my screen. It should be just 377,000. That M is a typo and should be deleted.
Okay, and the reason that that has decreased? Because of
So the
amort-
capital assets, so amortization is just your annual amortization every year. And that was the 1.3 million that decreases your total asset base. And then it's offset by any additions in the year. And so the additions for the year were that $377,000 number.
Your machinery that was amortized or our roads or just,
That's correct. Yep. It's so all of your tangible assets, which would be any of your machinery, your equipment, your linear assets, all of that is included in there.
okay, thank you. All right.
All right. So maybe the only other item I'll point out that's not just listed in that box on the right-hand side is just the net financial assets. So it was 929,000 last year. It's 1.6 million this year. So that is a financial indicator that we do always look at in terms of overall financial health, is to make sure that not only is it in a positive number, meaning that your financial assets exceed your financial liabilities, but that it is in a healthy position. At a minimum, it's equal to or greater than the cash position. So happy to note that that is the case, and no flags for concern there. And then maybe, sorry, and then just one other point. So last year, the last few years, we've talked a little bit about the taxes receivable. The taxes receivable as a percentage of the levy are consistent with last year at around that 27%. That is, relatively high when we do a comparison to your peer group. And we, again, chatted about this last year and I believe the year before. However, last year we were in a similar timing. We were, October of 2024, which was, 10 months into the current fiscal year that we're speaking of. So I know that there's been a concerted effort in the last 12 months. So we do expect to see in 2025 this percentage to come down. The goal would be, closer to a 20%. That is kind of on the medium range of what the ministry puts out as a financial indicator, and that's consistent when we look across at the other townships and similar size that what we would be aiming for. So I just wanted to close the loop on that one because I know we've talked about that in the past as well.
Thank you very much.
And then page 12 is the statement of operations. So again, this is a screenshot from the financial statements, and we have the highlights on the side there. I won't go through all of them, but I will just note on a couple of them in revenue. So the taxation, they're very consistent with what had been budgeted. The biggest change we see year over year is in the investment income. So that was a combination of rates, but also a significantly higher cash balance held throughout the year, earning that interest. So in saving some of those government funds, specifically the OSIF and the gas tax funds, you were able to generate more interest income that the township can then utilize as a revenue source. And then overall expenses, we saw the decrease year over year. Again, that mainly is coming from the activity around those kind of non-capital projects. So specifically roads, there was a bit of a decrease last year. And I know in 2025 that's already ramped up, and we expect to see that increase for the 2025 year. And then after that, the rest of the report is really more housekeeping. So again, just noting here, there were 3 new standards that were adopted and put into the financial statements. But again, they were mandatory and very standard adoptions. In terms of other financial reporting matters, aside from incorporating those new standards, the financial statements do look very consistent with what you've seen in the past. Looking forward, as I mentioned, 2025 is a bit of a reprieve in terms of standards. So no new standards coming in for fiscal 2025. And then we only have one coming in currently anyways for 2026, which is not numbers based. It's really just form and presentation of how the financial statements will look. So as we get closer to 2026, we'll certainly have some webinars for the management team to be able to hop onto and be able to assist in any assistance there, but expect that one to be a pretty easy adoption as well. And then page 15 here is what we refer to as specific topics. So these are all kind of the rest of those required communications. And certainly, again, takeaway for the group here today is on the right-hand side, no matters to report on any of these, which is exactly what we like to see. In terms of audit misstatements, so again, we had materiality set at that $200,000 level. We do audit to a much smaller number, which is a strict calculation. So it's 5% of that total materiality, which is 10,000. To the extent we found differences over 10,000, we either had them adjusted or booked them as an uncorrected difference after having conversations with management. So we did identify one item that was subsequently corrected, so that adjustment got put through the books. And then the other item we had flagged was actually a correction from last year that was fixed in the current year. So we've just flagged that. It was about 41,000, as I mentioned before. And then on the go forward now, that's all been fixed as well. So the good news is for 2025, clean slate, nothing rolling forward there. In terms of internal controls, so internal control are a significant part of the audit. We are required to get a thorough understanding of the control environment, and to the extent we had flagged any significant deficiencies, we would bring them to your attention here today. Happy to note, though, no significant deficiencies noted. We did identify a couple, I think there was 4 in total, of more of a best practice or kind of performance improvement efficiency points that we had highlighted with management, but again, more efficiency and performance improvement, nothing that raised to a level of a deficiency. So all looks good on the internal control front as well. And then last slide before the appendices here, just a quick note on independence. So we are required annually just to confirm our independence with yourselves. To the extent we completed any non-audit services, we would note them, but happy to say we do not complete any non-audit services. So no perceived or factual conflicts to note here. And then after that, into the appendices, which I won't go through in detail, but happy to take any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody again. And here we go, and see if there are any questions either on the appendices or the report in general.
Okay, we'll start with Councillor Jablonski.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Katie. Last question. So overall, looking pretty good.
Yes, I would say very clean audit, well, a clean audit opinion, but a very clean audit process as well. And from a financial indicator perspective, there's about 7 that the ministry puts out, nothing flagged of any cause of concern.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Holton,
No questions, thank you.
Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Katie, thank you again for doing this, and we appreciate your efforts
in the future to move it forward earlier in the year, so thank you. Couple questions. Your says there's no evidence of fraud. Correct?
So our report said there's no evidence based on our procedures. So again,
Yeah.
just to note, the audit is not a, you know, a 100%. We don't look at every single thing that goes through. We do audit on a sample basis, but based on the samples that were pulled and the procedures performed, no evidence of fraud was noted.
So, following up on that, then, I guess from the audit or your perspective, do you see things where, procedures should be put in place to eliminate the potential for fraud in the future, or is this, we're still in good shape?
I would say in good shape. So when we look at the internal controls, you know, to the extent there's anything from a control perspective where, you know, we're not seeing a segregation of duties, or, you know, we're not seeing kind of that two-person, you know, check go through, we would flag those and bring them to your attention. But even the performance improvement points we noted were nothing control related. It was more about, you know, making sure that there's a long-term financial plan in place, you know, looking at the use of the reserves and, you know, is the money in being flagged and utilized, you know, to make the most, you know, efficient use of those funds. So it was really more kind of financial strategy, not controls related. Everything from a control perspective looked good based on our testing.
And I ask you this question every year. Do you have an opinion on the status of our reserves? And it's kind of a two-part question because I think for the most, well, do our reserves look as a township? And is there, how, for example, is one township, one ward or the other need more work or more susceptible?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a good question. So kind of the benchmark that the ministry puts out is reserves to be at a minimum anyway, 20% of the operating expenses, which you guys are in excess of that. But that is one of the items we had flagged, you know, to management, is that the development of that long-term financial forecast or financial strategy, looking at not only the operating requirements, but then what are going to be the capital requirements, bringing in your asset management planning and what does that look like and how will it be funded, you know, reserve, debt, you know, other funding sources. You kind of need all of those pieces of the puzzle to be able to answer that question, you know, fulsomely. But based on all the indicators that the ministry puts out, you know, everything looks to be in good shape. But that is an item we have noted in terms of what you have in reserves, you know, what will it be used for your future operational and your future capital requirements? And, you know, are the funds that are in the reserves, and the reserves are restricted for certain uses, and does that make the most sense? And I know that is an exercise that management is looking at in the immediate future in terms of what the, you know, the bylaws for the reserve state the funds can be used for, and what those future capital and non-capital outlays are going to be, and making sure everything's lined up appropriately.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ackley.
Yeah, the only thing, Deputy Mayor, just to ask the question really, but your management representation letter, the printing got very small, so it's very hard to read compared to the rest of your stuff. It gives me a misleading focus on some of the stuff, that's all. Like at the end result here, or at the end pages, then everything shrunk. Is there a purpose?
It's really just to get it fit, you know, to fit the page, but we can, you know, that can be circulated if you like to see it. What the management representation letter is it's a letter that we provide to management, but management signs it and returns to us. It's basically management saying they have represented to us, you know, truthfully everything that they know about, you know, they're not withholding any information from us. So we provide it, it's a templated letter, but we provide it and then management signs it and returns it to us. But it is, you know, representations of management that, you know, they've disclosed all information to us.
Okay. All right, just going back to the concept of the reserves and that, and fact of Wolf Island and Howe Island having different mill rates and a separation of budgets. And that it's an ongoing challenge in that to make sure that things are being transparent, because when you say that we're good for reserves. And I look at the amount that Howe has in reserves, it's dramatically different than that compared to what Wolf, because of the benefits of the wind turbines. And that, so the reality is we do have separate budgets for the two wards. And at some point, it would be nice to have that more clearly recognized in the statements and that, but also in the statements that for the third year, I'm gonna say, we don't have a Hope Island. And in the statements, it keeps referring to a Hope Island. I believe it should be Howe Island. And if that could get corrected, I'd really appreciate that one. But I am concerned that because while the reserves overall are good, they're also misleading that for the division of it. So we need to, that's a method of counsel in that to make sure that we are more attuned to that. Is there any opportunity in the future that we could have it even in this overview statement and that of the slide presentation that you have, a separation of the two wards? So that we would have your expertise in that for where we need to pay special attention to?
Yeah, so maybe just one comment. I'm going to make sure that that hope is fixed. I will
Thank
do it myself, because that, yes, is not acceptable. So I will make sure that gets fixed. And then in terms of the separation, so we do complete the audit at the consolidated level, but I do know, I mean, I had a conversation with the treasurer just back in September, we had discussed that because I know that has been raised in the past. So I can work with the treasurer in terms of what we can, provide on a future basis. But I do suspect that will be more of a supplementary report coming from management rather than from auditors. But we can certainly talk about whether, we can add a slide in future on that.
Okay, and will you be going through the draft financial statements with us today or no?
So I wasn't going to. It's a clean audit opinion. We went through all the highlights in the report. Again, other than those new standards that were adopted, the statements are, substantially the same in terms of format. And we touched on the two main statements, being statement of financial position and statement of operations.
Okay, then my question would be regarding that misstatement that wasn't corrected, and that I assume that might be the capital grant recovery of
That's correct.
41,000. And could someone clarify what grant recovery was taken back on us?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I'll answer this one. So if you recall last year, there was a grant received regarding the senior apartment for the outdoor area. This was reported to council that there was no project in place and that we had to return the funds. So in the financial statements, you see the capital recovery, that amount is recorded in the statements. Katie can speak to it if she wants. But basically, the uncorrected is we're not going back and changing last year's numbers. We're just putting it through 2024. And then we get to 2025, it's all balanced out and we have a clean slate on it.
Okay.
That's
And
exactly
so
what I would have said as well, Jesse.
2024, we are looking at a small deficit. Is that correct? Or do we have a small surplus?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I can answer that one. So yeah, on the statement of where we have just get it here, on the statement of operations, there is the $8,000 deficit. Again, with kind of the financial statements, because you kind of get my budget reports as well. Basically, if you look at the top at the operating, there was kind of the surplus of the 33,000. So when we account for the grant clawback of 41, that's where we get the negative 8,000. Some of that too different, important to note in the financial statements compared to budget reports. There's the amortization piece. So that's kind of when you look at the next statement of net financial assets. You see, there's a significant increase there because that kind of accounts for the amortization piece.
Okay, and that includes that we had set aside about 500,000 going towards our road repair that occurred in 2025. Right, so if we hadn't, we're not getting another surprise of 500,000 this next year coming.
Through you, Madam Mayor, sorry, could you clarify that
Okay,
question?
the money that we didn't spend on roads in 2024, but we set aside for
Yeah.
2025.
Yeah.
If we are looking towards the roads coming in the future and that, are we looking towards a good news story?
So yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, how that's gonna work, so on the statement of financial position, you'll notice the obligatory reserves went up about, almost $90,000. So basically, we received the OSIP and CCBF in 24 and we didn't use it. When we use that funds, or we will be using it in 2025, that comes from deferred revenue and it would be reported in revenue. So again, we received the funds, but we don't recognize the revenue until we actually apply it towards projects. So kind of just speaking a little advanced, when we do get the 2025 statements, under the statement of operations down at the bottom of the capital items, you're gonna be seeing, larger amounts of government capital grants. And that's gonna be the utilization of the funds that are currently in the obligatory reserve.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, any other questions? All right,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by Deputy Mayor Saunders, second by Councillor Jablonski, that council thank Katie Mahone from KPMG for the presentation regarding the township's 2024 audited financial statements, and that council approved the 2020 audited financial statements as presented.
any other questions? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Katie.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're at the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by Councillor Halton, seconded by Councillor Ackley, that the September 8th, 2025 council meeting minutes be adopted as presented and or amended, and that the information items be received and filed.
Okay. Any discussion? Councillor Jablonski,
Nope. Thank you.
Councillor Halton,
No discussion. Thank you.
okay, Councillor Saunders,
Thank you.
Councillor Ackley.
No, thank you.
I have one question and that's regarding Eorn. The only place that, Wolf Island is going to be having any improvement, it looks like, is at Point Metcalf. And it's something we can take back towards, the township or the county that is running the show basically on this. But, we should make note that the people that are on the south shore and that from Big Sandy Bay, actually from the ridge on, and that often get dinged with the overlap of American
Roaming
from American. That, so I really think they should have a better look at our coverage down there. It sounds like from what I can see that Howe Island's gonna finally get fixed. And that for anything that it gets dinged for, but also the foot of Wolf Island will be fixed, it looks like, with Port Metcalf. I'm optimistic on that, but I don't see any great fix for the rest.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, and one final question. I don't see any of the AMO information.
No, you are correct, Madam Mayor. So my understanding is all members of council receive the AMO watch file, as does staff. So if there's anything in particular that council wishes to bring forward at a particular council meeting, please make either Angelique or I or even Jess aware of it, and we can certainly add it on for discussion, but essentially they are information items that all members of council already receive.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Now we're at the Public Works Report. And that is PW 005-25, pre-authorization for purchase of the used tandem plow truck for Wolf Island.
Moved by Councillor Jablonski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunders, that Public Works Report number PW 005-25, pre-authorization for the purchase of a used tandem plow truck, Wolf Island report to be received, and that council authorize staff to proceed with the purchase of a suitable used tandem plow truck to replace unit TC 03 for the Wolf Island Public Works Department with a maximum expenditure of $100,000, and that the purchase be funded from the Wolf Island Capital Reserve, and further that staff report back to council with the details of the acquisition once completed. Madam Mayor, our fleet coordinator is online if council has any specific questions with regards to the report. Our public works foreman had an appointment this morning and is unable to join us.
Okay, so we're talking about Randy Smeltzer.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, are there any questions? Councillor Jablonski.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just curious what happened to TCO3, just age, old? You know, the point of repair anymore?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Speak up.
Basically TCO3, the current unit we are discussing, it is 2008 model year, so it is 17 years old. Last spring, we experienced some significant mechanical difficulties with it. It was actually out of commission for approximately 2 months while we waited for parts availability, and service was a great difficulty, which really hindered some of our efforts to take care of the one blizzard that took place. We managed to get through that event, and the truck is currently back in service, and went through the safety inspection in April and passed. But given its age and mileage and certain other condition aspects, it seems best to relegate it to either a standby or backup unit, or find other purpose, such as simply hauling gravel and or perhaps even fitting the water tank that we acquired into it, as opposed to primary snow clearing, which is kind of an emergency management task. It seems it'd be ideal as a standby or a backup unit, but as a primary frontline unit, it seems that we just want to minimize the potential for breakdowns that would compromise our ability to take care of snow events.
Great, Randy. Thank you very much. Good answer. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Holton.
No, I think it's wise if we can spend $100,000 and get a good used truck. That is a great use of funds. And do you have an eye on a truck right now, or is there some available that you're looking at?
We don't have a specific unit in mind at this point. We have been keeping our eyes out for like what we would consider to be the most ideal candidate. We're trying to shop for the best possible deal, given the age of the unit, mileage, condition, etc., and also cost. We have kind of as a given baseline done some sort of homework with regards to, for the sake of comparison, what a new unit would cost. And I really don't think that a new unit is an achievable option, particularly in the short term, given a new unit, whether purchased or leased, we're looking at between $425,000 and $450,000. And that is a significant amount of money to look at for a unit. If we look on either GovDeals or more specifically at surrounding townships that are upgrading their fleets with new units and seeing what they're culling, whether their standards are higher than ours with regards to condition or age or mileage, if we can find something that well, is basically a hand-me-down option or secondhand clothes for a really good price point. We're just basically at this point keeping our eyes out for the best deals. We know that other townships and counties surrounding us are in the process of either upgrading their fleet or culling units out of their fleet.
Okay. Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Mayor. Randy, thank you for that, but I do have a question for the treasurer. This is an asset we are building an asset management plan. Is it coming at some point? Is this included?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So the asset management, the first workshop comes at the end of October. So that's when the consultants at Watson will kind of walk through what we have. As far as kind of the replacement, the truck is up in age, so it would kind of be worked into that. I think kind of the purpose of the report today is it's an identified need, and this just provides staff flexibility if there is, you know, something of good value that we're able to kind of capitalize on.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Arkley?
How many trucks do we have in your fleet now? Plow trucks?
We are currently at 3.
How many licensed drivers do you have for that fleet?
5. 5 total available.
Okay,
Do we intend on losing any drivers this year as of age?
I can't speak to that. I would say no.
probably our CAO might have a better handle on that.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Because you get up there, you have to take different tests, right?
You have to do an annual test, I
Yeah.
think, but yes. So at my knowledge rate at this point in time, no.
I just didn't mind you.
Okay. Okay. All right, I have a question. What was the breakdown that occurred last year and how much did it cost to fix it?
The breakdown occurred. We had noted the truck, some noise. It was assessed. The turbocharger had basically broken, and in the options available to us, a new turbocharger was approximately $16,000 to $17,000, excluding associated, gaskets, etc. We opted to have the turbo from the truck rebuilt, which was considerable savings. It only cost $2,000. We did end up having to replace another component associated with it for an additional $2,000. I think the total repair came out to about $5,000 or $6,000, which is still a considerable savings over just the new replacement component. But the bigger difficulty was the fact that it took approximately 2 months to get all of the required repairs taking place. And in the middle of that, we ended up having the snowstorm that we ended up taking care of over the one that started Saturday night. And basically it wasn't until about Tuesday that we pretty much had everything cleaned up. But with only 2 trucks available, it did present certain challenges.
Okay, and what's the mileage of this truck?
I believe it's around 236 to 240,000 kilometers.
Okay, and the other 2 trucks that are in the fleet?
The next one up in age would be 2014, and it's, I believe, at about 150 to 160,000 kilometers. And then the newest one in the fleet is a 2018 or 2017, and it is only at about 100,000 kilometers.
Okay. And $100,000 in that. What is your goal? Are you looking for a truck that has under 100,000 kilometers on it?
The more that we're looking at, if we can find something that is basically from 2015 to 2018 or newer, and hopefully less than 150 to 180,000 kilometers, I think that would represent a fair value. And just doing some rough shopping around, it seems that you could easily achieve a purchase of something in that range for less than the $100,000.
Okay,
But
and Councillor Arkley, one more question.
again, one question, but we'd have to fit it with a plow, or do we have a surplus?
No, we are looking at units that are already outfitted as plow equipment. This would save considerable time and expense in terms of having to retrofit or install any equipment.
Okay, one final question that, at any point in time, how many plows do we usually put on the road when it's not a blizzard?
When it's not a blizzard, it's usually two, but I mean, we tend to run all three trucks pretty much constantly. I mean, if it's not a blizzard, they'll do an assessment of the need for plowing. Most of the time, if it's not a blizzard, if the snow conditions are, or say, let's say a recent snowfall, it's not so much that whether it's snowing or not, it's more with regards to the drifting. The drifting seems to be the bigger issue that hits this island. It doesn't have to be snowing to have a road blocked from significant drifting.
Yeah, the old snow fences actually did do a fair bit to help with that sort of stuff. You do have wind that blows it. Okay, thanks for answering those questions. And continue on.
Motion's on the floor.
Okay, we want to read the motion one more time.
Sure, no problem. Moved by Council Jablonski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunders, that Public Works Report number PW 005-25, pre-authorization for the purchase of a used tandem plow truck, Wolf Island, report be received, and that council authorize staff to proceed with the purchase of a suitable used tandem plow truck to replace unit TC 03 for the Wolf Island Public Works Department with a maximum expenditure of $100,000. And that the purchase be funded from the Wolf Island Capital Reserve, and further that staff report back to council with the details of the acquisition once completed.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, now we have a finance report, FN 013-25, 2026 community grants.
Moved by Councillor Holton, seconded by Councillor Ackley, that finance report number FN 013-25, 2026 community grants be received, and that council approves the 2026 community grants administrative process, and that council approves the proposed funding amounts of $25,755 for Wolf Island and $9,690 for Howe Island as part of the 2026 budget.
Okay,
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this report is one, just kind of give a quick summary of the community grants last year, where the funds went to which groups. Second, to kind of talk about a potential increase just based on kind of cost of living and keeping up with that. And then the third part is to just set down the steps for the process, the administration process on how the community grants will be approved and funded to the groups. So starting off again, last year there was $34,750 that was distributed amongst groups. There was $25,250 for Wolf Island groups. And then there was $9,500 for funds that went to groups on Howe Island. The 2% increase, again, this is consistent with last year. What I'm just bringing to council is the inflation up until the end of August, which is 1.9%. So the 2% is just a little bit above that. And then basically how it would work, if council today approves the increase, groups will submit letters requesting funding, and then council will approve the group's request as part of one of the budget meetings. Again, if you increase it by 2%, this just increases the allocation. It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, every group gets 2% more. Council will be making those decisions on a group by group basis. And as with last year, we did have an increase. Not all of it was used. So that's why my recommendation is, again, we'll bring those funds from last year to help kind of support this increase. Again, this is council's decision, and I did start with a 2% increase. We can leave the amount the same as last year, should council wish to. Part of what we do with the budgeting and our process is to kind of keep our costs and expenditures tied with cost of living. So that way we're delivering the same benefit to the people in the community as we did last year. And to avoid an issue where 5, 6, 7 years down the road, there hasn't been an increase, and then there's a much larger increase that is needed. So for Wolf Island, as I said, the 2% would represent a total increase of $505. Again, as I said last year, 880 went unallocated, so we could have those funds brought forward. For Howe Island, it's $190 increase. Going to the community grant process, again, this year, the process is mostly the same as last year. We've just kind of further defined things. Again, just the definition of community grant, that it be for a not-for-profit, can include unincorporated groups. But they must operate within the boundaries of the township and they must hold an event or do a service that benefits the community of Frontenac Islands. We plan to post the community grants on our website and our social media pages, encouraging groups to apply. As always as well, any groups that have seen funding last year, I'll reach out to them directly just to make sure that they're aware and that no one misses it. Again, as of last year, we request they submit a letter, which would include group contact information, the general description of their group, even if they've received funds in the past, just so people in the community are aware what they do. They must have a specific funding request, so the funds must be used for a specific purpose in the 2026 calendar year. And then they also must provide us a budget, so we need to see a breakdown of their expenditures. So again, the process would be during one of the budget meetings, so we'd have the Wolf Island groups at our Wolf Island Council budget meeting and the Howe Island groups for Howe Island. They would submit letters and then they have the option to present their letters to council, which gives you the opportunity to ask questions. We don't make the presentation requirement, so a group could just submit their letter. The only caveat, if council has questions, if they're not there to answer, it might impact, your knowledge and your ability to make a decision then. So kind of just to further define it, we started this last year. So any groups that got funding, we created community grant agreements for them to sign. Part of that grant agreement requires them to submit a final report with copies of all of their invoices and receipts showing how they utilize the funds. One thing I just wanted to highlight here, because we approved funds for these groups for the full year, for example, 2025, I don't have the group submitting a final report until January 2026 for the funds they received in 2025. So the one caveat I have here, groups are going to be making the request this budget season before I get the final report. I just have it written into the process that I won't sign a grant agreement for a new grant for the 2026 one until they've done a final report for 2025 and they've returned any unused funds. So say you approve funding for a group in November, that gets approved in council. I won't sign an agreement or release funds for 2026 until they've given me a final report for 2025. Should that happen, I'd bring a report to council saying, hey, we're missing this documentation. Council needs to decide, do you want to kind of revoke the grant funding or do we want to give them an extension to get the items in? Again, that just protects the township that groups that are using the funds are accountable and they provide the appropriate documentation. And as with that, the final report, again, it's very basic. They kind of list the outcomes, what they saw. We now request they provide us any pictures or documentation that we might be able to share with the community for the good things that they do. And then again, we just receive that and file it. So again, the recommendations, we have a 2% increase for Wolf and Howe Island, as well as a recommendation just to approve the administrative process I laid out for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Bonnicky?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Jesse, great job. Like the checks and balances now, for those grants. 2% seems very realistic. Is it enough, 2%?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think for me, the community grants is, they present to council and council makes that decision. I just feel more comfortable keeping up with cost of living. I think, council does, I'd say for both islands gives a fair amount to the groups. If someone had a request that was above and beyond what we have, I think it's probably worthwhile to look at that separately. Just to answer your question. So I think 2% is reasonable.
Fair enough. Thank you, Jesse.
Okay, Councillor Holton?
Yeah, so this is kind of really just a guideline for us to go into budget, that we're not setting it in stone today, or are we, that'll be the maximum that's allowed, or?
So through you, Madam Mayor, so basically today, if you were to approve it, when I present the draft budget, it would have that as the draft number. And then council would work from that. At the end of the day, nothing's really finally finalized until the budget's approved, but that'd be the number I'd start with. So it would kind of make sense today to make a decision, and then that we have that number kind of locked down for the budget process.
Right, thank you.
And Councillor Saunders?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So you've answered my one question for Councillor Holton, Councillor Holton asked, excuse me. I did want to let you know, as kind of a heads up, the Recreation Committee will not be requesting funding this year for the end of season barbecue and fireworks. So that's a significant financial amount. So we'll have to see how that plays out in terms of how that gets, which budget gets taken out of and what into. So that's just a heads up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ackley?
So a follow up on that one, how would we separate that from the rec thing? Should it be a new name?
Yeah,
Cause it's still recreation, but should it be a baseball recreation,
yeah,
asking for its own funding?
through you, Madam Mayor. So with the community grants, I think just the important thing is each group comes forward with their own requests. The one condition is you do have to be a group to request funding. Again, you don't need to be an incorporated not-for-profit, but the money is usually given to groups and not individuals. So if there needs to be, end of summer barbecue committee or something that's put together from people in the community,
Seems like a bit much. I'm a bit overwhelmed with that whole part of it. Like, to make a whole thing up for one event it's just above and beyond. Like-
So through you, Madam Mayor, I think this is the process for community grants. If there's an individual and they had a request, they could come to council with a letter and request money. It's just for the process, these are the grants, there's an agreements, there's requirements. If you want to receive funding from this bucket of like funds, then there is kind of this process.
It just appears the recreation committee is trying to avoid the end of the year event. That's what it appears to me.
Well, you're a member of the recreation committee.
Well, I know I'm not.
So I guess,
Put it that way.
Madam Mayor, for the reason for my comment was because we want to get some clarification. There was unfortunately some confusion last year in terms of who was actually managing the event, and therefore who was responsible for the funding, and therefore who was responsible to report back to council on how the funding was spent. And we're just trying to clarify that for going into 2025. 2026.
Okay. Any other questions?
So I guess we just, cause we're not gonna make another committee to ask for more money, like that's.
I don't know what
I think
the
that's just
plan
getting-
is at this point.
It's a recreational event and we're gonna make another committee, we got to get along here, it's just not working.
So if I can offer a suggestion, we'll take that back to recreation committee. We can have that conversation.
Yeah, we better.
And I have a few questions along that line, Matt, but actually for the Wolfhound side, Matt. Community Center Board. It's not considered anything for a grant, and yet it isn't arm's length to our budget. It's actually part of the budget. So do they, a little question, Matt, do they pay for barbecue and fireworks? Community Center Board, I'm not aware of that. On the Wolfhound side, I have two counselors that are involved with that. Counselor Halton?
We don't have a community center board. There's a recreation committee that looks after events up there, like the children's events, family ball, helps out with those volunteer. I'm not aware of any fireworks or barbecues that they've done. They've done some fundraising dances for some equipment they need for kids' sports, but as far as running the community center, that's done through our CAO and our staff.
Yes.
Okay, so the Recreation Committee is not a committee of council.
No.
Okay, so I go back to you for the Community Center Board.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, they're not here because they've never submitted a request for funding. I know they do fundraising to be self-sufficient. Again, like the rec committee, if the board had a request for money, it could technically go to council and be approved. Again, just from what we have budgeted and the cost the township incurs, the township pays for all the utilities, all the events, all the equipment, that's all township owned, so. Again, they're not here today because there's been no request.
So it seems almost like a double standard in how recreation is managed between the two islands.
How so?
The Community Center Board is actually part of the budget for the Wolfhound side.
The community, so through you, Madam Mayor, the budget calls it like the CCB. Ultimately, it just represents the expenditures that we incur at the arena and the baseball diamonds. So I understand your point there because it comes up budget CCB. Ultimately, that budget is fully township funds, cost expenditures that flow through there. So when you see that budget, it's the township. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding, there used to be a community center board. that was separate, but it was brought into the township early 2010s, late 2000s. So that might be where there's, I could see where the kind of confusion is, but there is no separate treatment with the community groups.
Okay, because I've never been invited to a community center board meeting, and I'd be very interested to attend one.
I don't know that there are any.
No, it's a recreation community.
It is a recreation committee.
Yeah.
But it is not official with the municipality,
No,
and yet they're part of the budget.
the municipality.
If the budget for CCB is like, you'll see Arena Hydro, or there's, user fees for like rentals, or there's, we have to buy, equipment for the ball diamonds. If that's all internally managed by the township.
Would it rightly be better classified under public works?
Culture and rec might make more sense than
Yeah.
CCB,
Yeah.
which,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay,
Which-
some better
yes,
class.
I understand, the point you're making,
Okay,
which when I come to budget, I could combine culture rec and CCB. I would probably look for council direction before doing that, but it wouldn't be hard.
okay. And you clarified that the people that come asking for something do not have to actually hit the bar of being a not-for-profit.
Correct.
Because in here, it indicates that to receive a community grant, community groups must meet the following eligibility requirements, and the very first point is be a not-for-profit, which is a much higher bar, or a registered charitable organization, which is even higher, so maybe that wording's a little strong.
It's 3 members, so the bracket including non-incorporate groups, I think the purpose is trying to get is we're not doing community grants to businesses.
Yeah.
Historically, we're doing it to organizations that operate on a not-for-profit basis. So no one trying to make money. Again,
Yeah.
from who we donated to, it's all organizations that are for the benefit of the community. So again, if you have wording suggestions, I'd be happy to hear.
I'm thinking shall is too strong, must seems very strong, I'm thinking should meet the following eligibility, gives us a little bit more wiggle room for it.
Yeah, and through you, Madam Mayor, we were planning to post this wording. I'm happy to change the must to a should. And again, the whole purpose of this report is it's still council making all the decisions. So I think I agree with you. If you want, the should gives us a little bit more room. We're more than happy to put that into our communications.
Okay, and on that note, when you're listing down the proposed community groups for the Wolfhound side, I see the Wolfhound Early Years Center is still involved, and that was not one of the grants that went forward last year because it had folded.
No, through you, Madam Mayor, they did receive funding from council.
I thought that they had made an application, they had folded at the Sacred Heart School.
No, they received approval by council.
They did?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I see the Wolfhound Historical Society, which, I'm a lifetime member of that, but I know that, the budget that they have in the reserves, they have is significant, far greater from when I was first on the, board years ago and that, so that should probably be looked at as to what is truly needed. Because I also think about the, gravel road cycling, initiative, that the hotel group came to us too late to get anything this year. And that, but encouraging new groups and that and new activities is also very important too. And I still wonder about, the Big Sandy Bay piece, because we still have that building out there without a hydro pole, without anything else going on. Seems like a dead asset, and we just need to get perhaps have some better communications with whatever technical group is responsible for Big Sandy Bay, and I've never gotten a straight answer on that one as to who's even responsible at this point in time. Yes, the Ministry of Environment owns it, but the Big Sandy Bay Recreation Society and that, or whatever it's called, and that hasn't been active as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, again, with the funding, just to touch Historical Society, they had a specific request last year, and again, these numbers, it all depends what the group submit. The Big Sandy Bay Board, there's won't be hydro poles, there is solar power, and work as stated has been done to kind of complete the building, as what's in our budget. Regarding the board, I agree, it is an area, that we are looking into. Again, it's not as straightforward and there was, things handed off to the township. But hopefully, in the future, there'll be updates on what the kind of new vision for that is.
Okay, so will you be reaching out to the hotel that did ask too late for the gravel road piece?
So through Madam Mayor, the Wolf Island Commons, I did add them to this report because they pulled the $870, that was to cover the insurance. So I will reach out to them to let them know to apply, but they are included on this report. That's the amount council approved. I believe back in July, if I'm not mistaken, so. Again, I think the important thing to note is the funding, this is all based on every request we get each year, so it's gonna change and people have to have a good case for why they need funding and. Have that council scrutiny before those funds are given out.
Okay, so there must be somebody that's back running the early years, because the person that ran it before had left, that's how we were alerted to it. Okay. Councillor Ackland.
Yeah, I just have what we should increase though here on the Howe Island side is, the garden buds do a tremendous job with a limited amount of money. I think that should be moved to $3,000. And I already thought we did last year, but
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, their request did go up 500, historically it was 1,500, they got $2,000. I think there was additional landscaping work they were gonna do.
yeah.
I think just to clarify, this report's not approving funding for any of
No,
those
no,
groups. This is just what we gave last year.
Yeah.
So next year, if it's approved, I'm saying there should be $9,690 available. As council, you can decide how that's split between the groups.
Okay, so percentage wise, we're probably looking like 0.2% of our budget is what this is.
It's very small between
Very small,
the two, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any further questions? Councillor Saunders.
So, for clarification, so if a group will receive money this year, for this year, if that money's not spent, they have the option of either turning it back or asking for it to put it in reserves to transfer to the next year?
Through you, Madam Mayor, so no, if they don't utilize the funds, they return them to us, and it's each year's dealt as a separate process. Just the one caveat, we're not gonna write them another check if
Yeah.
they owe us, $500 or $1,000.
Thank you.
We'll wait till they return it.
Okay. All those in favor? Do you want to read that one more time?
Like it, are we ready?
Sure.
Moved by Councillor Holton, second by Councillor Ackley, that finance report FN 013-25 2026 community grants be received. And that council approves the 2026 community grants administrative process. And that council approves the proposed funding amounts of $25,755 for Wolf Island and $9,690 for Howe Island as part of the 2026 budget.
Okay, any further discussion? Those in favor? Carried. Now we're at the CAO update report. New piece. Good.
Thank you. So I want to extend thanks to Angelique for developing the slides for me and the layout and everything. Much appreciated. So I will just wait till she gets it up here and we'll go through it.
You better not lose it. After getting that pat on the back.
Uh-oh.
No, that's not.
No.
While she's doing that, as an aside, Councillor Saunders, are you planning on being excused at any time for that Zoom meeting that you'd asked about?
Yes, this is more important than that.
Okay, because we still have quorum, just to let you know.
It's always nice when we attend other meetings. Angelique and I attended our zone meeting in Pembroke. And it's not just us that have technical issues.
You have it open the agenda and just, but share your screen and then just, hit Your full screen should pop up there. Like. minimize.
No.
There. Okay, it's
No.
up there. Oh.
Progress.
Right, up there.
CEO update then.
Get done.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. I called her.
Atta girl.
Perfect, thank you.
Mustang.
So the next slide with the CAO schedule highlights. There we go. So as council can see, staff have been very busy with several meetings and training seminars throughout September and the first half of October. Starting off with the regular council meeting in September, we had a community planning permitting system public information session on September the 10th. It was held both virtual and in person. I don't recall it being a strong attendance for that meeting. We did accessible PDF document training on September the 11th with the county. We also did a privacy breach protocol workshop on the 23rd with the county. All of our staff have now been AODA customer service and human rights code training as of September the 23rd. We had a joint CAO treasurers meeting in Charlotte Lake on the 29th. The CAO and treasurer attended the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing workshop in Prescott in October 1st. All the department heads got together to start our 2026 budget review on the 2nd. We had the treasurer and myself attended a group of benefits renewal meeting October the 6th. The deputy clerk and myself attended the Zone 6 fall meeting in Pembroke on the 8th and 9th. Today, obviously, we have another regular meeting of council, and then tomorrow we've got department heads to review meeting today and start working on our budget. Myself, I've been busy working with MPPCU with the Rio and the Ontario Ministry, OMA Medical Association, Ontario Medical Association. We had a virtual meeting with the MPPCU on August the 7th. There's no real update with that. MPPCU is still advocating on our behalf in the background. We've presented a first draft of the procedural bylaw. I've gotten comments back from some members of council. The deputy clerk and myself will review those comments and bring back hopefully for the November meeting. We presented the records management policy and we're bringing it forward today for first and second reading. We are currently working on our election data. We have till December 31st, 2025 to do our cleansing activities. We're also working on our 2026 election project management. We presented earlier this year our delegated authority policy. We hope to bring that back at the November meeting. We are currently working on our accessibility compliance and reporting. Our update is due to the ministry by the end of this month. We're working on our records management, cybersecurity and insurance, and any freedom of information requests we are receiving. We had a recruitment for the two ferries in May of this year, I do believe. We were successful in recruiting, and Chief Cohen can correct me on this if I'm wrong, 2 for the Howe Island East End Township Ferry, casual call-ins, and we were successful for the Simcoe Island, which we have also utilized that individual for other programs this summer. I believe we utilized for coverage of at the waste site, as well as flagging for the capital works construction over there. Legal services, just continuing to act on council's direction with regards to the legal matters. And then just some miscellaneous, we had a staff appreciation barbecue on July the 17th. For the finance, our treasurer was successful with a tax arrear sale that occurred on July the 24th this year. We just went through our audited 2024 financial statements, and our auditors are quite happy. Everything seems to be very good. We are in our 2026 budget process. We're starting that with our department heads, and our treasurer's got the draft forms out to all the department heads. Something else that's new this year that our treasurer initiated was a community engagement budget survey, which closes this Friday. So if everybody has had an opportunity, if they haven't, please fill out the survey, or encourage all your constituents to fill out the survey and send it back in. As touched on a little bit earlier, our asset management plan phase 3, Watson and Associates will be presenting a workshop with council on October the 27th at 1 p.m. The treasurer's been working on some contracts and tenders ongoing. He just presented the community grants for 2026. And we have received some funding, received for fire protection in the amount of $16,460. And we have just recently submitted another grant application in the amount of $38,420. Our emergency services, just a quick overview. The emergency management meeting will be held on October the 27th. That's our annual tabletop exercise. Our CEMC attended the fall sector meeting, which there are some changes coming down in legislation. So stay tuned for that. Our assistant deputy chief has been working on the NG 911 address project for Howe, Wolf, and Simcoe Islands. And we had 2 very successful joint emergency training operations held in July and September with Leeds and the Thousand Islands and the town of Gananoque. Our ferry services are chugging right along. Touch wood, there's not been any real disruption. We continue to do regular maintenance, and we have our regular monthly operational touch point meetings with MTO. Public Works was a very big year for both islands with all the road construction. So Howe Islands was completed on August the 15th with 8 kilometers of roads resurfacing on Howe Island Drive, Spithead, and Baseline Road. Wolf Island conducted approximately 10 kilometers on Road 96 and completed I'm going to say 1.1 on Joy Road, and it was all done and wrapped up September the 16th. So there may still be some bits of dust floating around until the gravel all adheres to the emulsion, but all in all, I've not heard anything but good things about the 2 projects. The funding for the Wolf Island Roads projects utilized $387,000 in Canada Community Building Fund, which is the CCBF, and Ontario Community Infrastructure, OCIF, and Howe Island Roads utilized $263,000 in combination of those 2 funds. Communications, we've launched a new official Facebook page. Thank you very much, Angelique. She continues to do great work on that. Several updates to the township website. We will be focusing on getting the content on that as up to date as we can, as we will be transitioning to a new website next year. So we would like the content as up to date as possible to make that transition easy. A 2026 budget page has been created on Engage Frontenac. The budget survey, which was being created and is also posted on Engage Frontenac, our website and the Facebook, and our Facebook page. The new website is to be launched in the spring of 2026. And that is in conjunction with the County of Frontenac, Township of North Frontenac, and Township of Central Frontenac. Communication updates distributed via the website news, events posted on the township's website and Facebook, and the Howe Island 3-car ferry updates are posted through Constant Contact and X or Twitter. So please sign up for email notifications. And currently we have 214 subscribers in Constant Contact and 509 followers on X or Twitter. For our building services and bylaw enforcement for the third quarter, 18 building permits were issued. We received a total of $5,192 in development charges, $42,000 in building permit fees, and the construction value of a little over $1.6 million. A goal for 2026 is to review trailer bylaw, review the zoning bylaw for small homes and bunkies, fence bylaw, and then the NG 911. Bylaw enforcement has been investigating zoning bylaw, building code violation, and bylaw issues. So council has any questions?
Okay, Councillor Jablonski.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I was saying, great job, ladies, on this. This is a great information and slide, so I really appreciate being updated. I like to see this going forward all the time. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
It's pretty informative as an information. Any questions I have about this, maybe I'll shoot you an email, but it's pretty straightforward. It's what we accomplished, so
Thank you very much.
pretty straightforward in my book. Well done.
Councillor Holton.
No real questions, just comment. I mean, it's nice to see that we're moving ahead and hopefully improved communication. This is a great step to let everybody know what goes on in our township monthly. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It strikes me that a lot of the work you've been, this is covering not just the last month, this is covering mostly, right?
Correct.
It strikes me that a lot of the work you've been involved in, staff been involved in, is catching up on stuff, getting us in compliance. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that is a fair statement.
And do you see much more going forward in terms of things we just have to get ourselves up to date on? You mentioned next, not the three bylaw things you mentioned, that's fine.
Yeah, we are getting there slowly but surely. We are making progress. Every time we think we're just about there, we uncover something else, but I think and Jess, I don't want to speak for you with the treasury aspect, but certainly we've got a lot of work to do with records management. And once we get we've got Tom Rims in now, we've done some executive staff, so it's just getting them on board and starting to utilize that more.
And one of the comment, Councillor Ackley and I, when we were running for council, which seems like a decade ago, we heard time and time again, improved communication. And now it looks like there's probably at least 6 different ways that people can communicate with the township. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So again, great job. The only thing I see that we really need to improve on is the bylaw enforcement. Like, wording is not correct when it comes to saying you can and can't do that, and what you can do and you can't do. We definitely need to work on that, because it's gave us some serious situations, and some of us are still pretty stressed about it. I think we need to clear up the T's and I's. Thank you. Other than that, it was great. You all did a great job.
Okay. And thank you for this report. It's very similar and it's layered as what we did at the county. As what I used to rate myself, and that's for other roles. But one thing, there's a few things, and that one is the procedure bylaw that you mentioned. And at the last meeting, because of the length of the meeting, we were asked to submit any notes and that for that. And well, I've submitted notes. I've only seen one other set of notes from one other counselor, and that should be part of our permanent record as well. So it should be part, because this is part of the transparency as to what questions. And as I noted at the previous meeting, doing policy and procedure is actually one of the roles of council for the development and oversight of it. So that needs to be clear, and I hope to see that in the next council agenda. And that, for that particular important procedure. Also, I just wanted to clarify, we actually then increased the number of staff because we had 2 new hires and nobody left for the ferries, or 3 new hires and nobody left. Just clarifying that. I know they're not full FTEs.
No, that's correct. So they are casual call-ins. So it's to help offset and cover, if someone calls in sick, to cover vacation schedules, that kind of thing. If our regular, I'm gonna call them permanent part-time people are unavailable to cover them.
So we have 3 more bodies, in other words,
Correct, yes.
and any associated additional expenses for that,
No, I'm going to turn that over to you, Chief. Howell.
other than training.
Or
I
Chief,
assume.
thanks, Frank.
So through you, Madam Mayor, in the case of Powell Island, 1 person left. In the case of Simcoe, they were looking to enhance their existing list, just to have additional people added. And to be cost effective, we decided let's also fill the classroom. So when the instructor came to do the course, it was better to have a full class than a part class that would cost the same. But we sold some seats to offset the cost to other neighboring municipalities as well. So we had a class of 12 and 6 or 7 were other municipalities and 5 was Frontenac Islands.
Good to hear. Another question on the budget consultation that I've been asked for hard copies, and people that aren't computer literate, when I went to the website, I couldn't download what would be essentially a hard copy for anybody to fill out and hand back in. And I think we should have that in hard copy form for those that, and instructions of when it needs to be handed back in, please, to township office. The staff appreciation day of July 17th, I wasn't notified of that. I hope to be invited next time.
Okay, no council member
Okay, it'd be nice in that, I'd like to be there. On that note, and that we did have, I'll go to that a bit later, different statements. The CCBF and the OCIF and that, was any of that brought forward from last year, or does it have to be spent on a yearly basis?
Yeah.
That we could probably say.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor. So this is what we talked about with the deferred revenue. For both funds, you have 5 years to use it. So the OSIP, we only carried it for 1, and we still have funds left over just because. Again, we get the budget conversation, there was for Howe Island, there's, another set of roads to finish. So, again, be expecting in the budget to be utilizing those funds again.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay.
I don't think I put this in before. Moved by Deputy Mayor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Delonte, that the presentation from Vanessa Latimer, CAO clerk, regarding a third quarter update be received.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay.
Well done.
Now we have administrative report, AD 020-25, new website platform required.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by Councillor Holton, seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunders, that administration report number AD 020-25, new website platform required be received, and that council support the selection of Sandbox Software Solutions, Inc. as the successful proponent for the township's new website platform. And further, that council directs staff to proceed with the one-time implementation fee and the first year of hosting with Sandbox Software Solutions. They want to have $25,002 to be temporarily funded from the working capital reserve with the reserve being replenished as part of the 2026 budget. As council will note in my report that, our current website host, which is GHD, will no longer be in 2026. So as part of the county, they put out an RFP earlier this year, which included, North Central, ourselves, and then, two sites with the county. There, Frontenac County and Visit Frontenac. 5 proposals were, submitted, and you can see the, evaluation criteria there as part of my report. Angelique actually sat in on the, demonstrations and everything with each and every one of the, proponents. And discussions among the staff afterwards, they all came back to the Sandbox software solutions. My understanding is the County of Frontenac has approved theirs to go forward. They actually had it in their budget this year for the replacement of this. North and Central have also approved going forward with the Sandbox solutions.
Okay,
Excellent.
questions, Councillor DeBonnicky?
Thank you. Just curious, what, again, the old company just going into business or they're just not able to keep up anymore or?
Actually, I'm going to defer that over to
Yeah.
Angelique.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So that company still exists, it's that we are the back end of how we update our website. All that platform is changing, and also the associated cost of what it would cost to upgrade and go to a different platform, how we go in and we do all the changes to all the website. So they were part of one of the proponents that we did sit in and watch the platform and watch the back end of it and so on, but their platform certainly was sort of the fact that it would be changing. They just said that as of June 2026, it would be shut down.
Okay.
What we currently use at this time.
One more question for me. So Sandbox seems to be in the future for a long time then? It's hard to say, can't
So again, we're going to be, this agreement, we're not gonna be locked in for a long term. We can certainly, as we're moving forward, we'll take a look and see how everything goes. But it's not like the agreement's not gonna say, well, we're locked in for 5 years or 10 years or so on. So that is my understanding, is that, again, based on the criteria of the proposal, they were at the front of it, and also the one great thing is that they're very, very passionate about the accessibility component. And that's really important as we move forward, with AODA and so on, but yes, so they have quite a bit of experience with municipalities as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Holton,
I have no questions.
Councillor Saunders?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just glad to see that the county's security group and IT group are fully on board with all the issues that happened and ransom and everything else, so thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ackley?
Yeah, I don't really have a comment. I think it's a great decision. We gotta move forward, right?
Okay, and I assume that this is proprietary stuff that they're using, not open source. So in other words, if down the road, we end up switching again with another provider, it all starts again.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, through you, Madam.
done. Okay,
Motion.
yep, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, and we're at administrative report AD 021-25, alternative voting method for the 2026 municipal election.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by Deputy Mayor Saunders, second by Councillor Jablonski, that administration report number AD 021-25, voting method for the 2026 municipal election be received, and that council support the continued use of the internet telephone voting as an alternative voting method for the 2026 municipal election. So as council can see, part of my report, Frontenac Islands has utilized internet and telephone voting for the last three elections, 2014, 2018, and 2022, for both the municipal and school board elections. So just some discussion, it's recommended that council continue with the internet and telephone voting as the chosen method for the 2026 municipal election. Recommendation is based on demographics, as we have a large number of residents, electors, seasonal and seniors who benefit from flexibility of remote voting. Accessibility, internet and telephone can provide enhanced access for persons with disabilities, students away from school, residents traveling or living outside the township. Efficiency, the process eliminates the need for in-person voting locations, reducing staff and administrative costs. Proven reliability, the township has successfully used this method in 3 prior elections with positive feedback and strong voter participation. In the security and integrity, modern electronic voting systems offer strong encryption, audit trails, and verified secrecy. Just a quick quip for members of council. In the 2022 election, there was 1,471 total ballots cast. Of that 1,471 ballots that were cast, 1,000 of them were internet. There was 379 manual and 92 telephone. So it is well utilized. I don't.
Both islands, like that is all together?
That's total for Frontenac Islands.
So only 471 people came and voted, like in and out of the door?
379 actual cast a paper ballot. And 92 did telephone.
Huh.
So 1,000 did. Internet.
Good to know. Thank you very much for those facts.
That's good.
Councillor Jablonski.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just go again, the cost here, it's an annual cost of 22.5 more or less.
That's what we have in, or what we will have in our, election reserve at the end of this year. We will, put further funding in next year as well, but, I like to do an election reserve, so it's a little bit every year as opposed to having a spike in an election year. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, let me say, it's worked for the last 3 elections, those numbers say it all. It'd be crazy not to continue this.
Okay, Councillor Holton.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Councillor Saunders.
Thank you.
Councillor Ashton.
How many voters is there in total on both islands?
It's a very good question. That I do not have off the top of my head here. But I can certainly get that to all members of council.
Okay.
I want to say roughly maybe around 2,000, 1,800, 2,000 maybe. But I will look that up and get it out to all members of council for you.
Yeah. I think that speaks to what I heard when I was up at AMO and that from the chief election officer for the province. That is also involved in this process. And that is the need for us to clean up our election lists.
Yeah.
Because there could be deceased people that the family is now voting for the deceased person. And that they could be Americans. They do not have the right to vote. And at this point in time in the self-application for cleaning up the lists, you actually get to declare whether or not you're eligible to vote. So there's always going to be a risk when we had such a high percentage of cottagers and people that may not have actually the right to vote. That said, our little township, I believe, had the highest turnout of all percentage wise, and that for the 2022. And that, I believe it was 67
municipalities.
for the municipalities. I believe we're around 67% at a turnout. And if that explains it with the internet vote, that's probably it. But I can tell you that there's a whole lot of municipalities at AMO that were complaining of single digit to low double digits for voter turnout for municipal elections. I thought, well, we're just more exciting, I guess, down here. But cleaning up our voters list is going to be very important. and I heard that when I was doing the door knocking, that people were getting multiple cards for people that don't own property, they were children at the time. And they no longer live on the island, they do not have the right to vote. And that being a child of an islander does not give you the right to vote. If you own property, that's different.
So clarification, a child away attending school like university, yes. But an adult child that has moved away and is no longer on the island, correct, unless they actually own property on the island.
Yes. And dead people don't get to vote either.
So that was, Elections Canada was at our zone meeting as well. They did an excellent presentation. And again, they kind of very efficiently hammered home, make sure you clean up your data, that we have. So, which is, I have a little bit more faith in Elections Ontario than I did with NPAC. Just in all my years of election, you would take out all the deceased people off your NPAC list, and the next election they'd be all right back on. So I'm optimistic for this.
So they're having Hope Island showing for us.
So basically that's saying that the telephone and the internet part is not working correctly. Cause if they can just pick up their ID card and punch in their number.
No, it's not. Through you, Madam Chair. It's not that, it's that they are getting, so a deceased person is still getting
Yeah.
that, so it's
Well, it shouldn't
the
get-
municipality's responsibility to ensure that the data that is in Elections Ontario is cleansed to reflect the accurate information.
So I think we need to make sure that there's a good operational plan early on in this process, and that for getting it cleaned up on both of the major islands, and that especially making it crystal clear in that as to who has the rights to vote, because I did hear repeatedly people feeling guilty that they were getting cards for their kids that were 40 years old and lived away, and it had just never been cleaned up. So I hope that we have a good plan in place.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I will also say that it is your responsibility if you, the parent, receive your child's card and they're not eligible, return that card to the township or destroy it. It is a criminal offense to vote for someone else, so.
Right, but to get it cleaned up off the list, it
Yeah.
needs to be a formal process, and I'm sure our CEO will get onto that. I look forward to that.
So the motion's on the floor.
Okay, any further questions? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Okay, now we are at action items required. We have a motion by Deputy Mayor Saunders that has been brought back. It was deferred from last January, was it?
Correct, yes. So I will put the motion on the floor, and if Deputy Mayor Saunders would like to speak to it. Moved by Deputy Mayor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Jablonski. Whereas the Wolf Islander 4 has not yet completed a full year of operations. And whereas the Wolf Islander 4 has yet to demonstrate its full capacity during peak traffic times. And whereas the summer months of June, July, and August consistently represent the highest volume of traffic. And whereas earlier studies have indicated the need for 2 ferries to accommodate demand. And whereas a 2-ferry system may present logistical and staffing challenges. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Frontenac Islands Council requests the Ministry of Transportation conduct a study to determine the cost and feasibility of operating a 2-ferry system for Wolf Island during the peak traffic months of June, July, and August. And further that if the study determines a 2-ferry system is feasible, MTO be requested to implement the operation of 2 ferries beginning. Well, here it has June 1st, 2025, but.
So through you, Madam Mayor, so I'd like to speak to this, a little additional background. We received a letter of support from a group on the island called Better Service for Wolf Islanders. And their offer was to assist us determining, the real question was, how are you gonna manage the capacity? How do we know, how you're gonna measure it? So a couple things have happened. One is, I had an invitation from that group, through Lisa Oram, to meet with them, which we did. they provide some data from their standpoint in terms of what they think how it should be measured. I did a follow-up with one of the senior members of MTO, MTO operations, and said, okay, here's what we're thinking about. What do you currently measure? And what they came back with was a number of trips at capacity. They measure the number of trips that are at capacity, which therefore allows them to figure out how many the total number of trips are. The percent vehicle deck capacity, again, capacity versus deck capacity is different depending on what vehicles are on there. They measure that. And they also measure what number of vehicles left behind on the dock or trip. Done per trip. So every trip they are measuring how many vehicles are left. So that's the work that's been done so far. Obviously, with the 4 being out of service for a long time, an extended period of time, all of this is kind of on hold. So my assumption is once they demonstrated the 4 is up and running again, as it should be. Well, I was gonna say full capacity up and running on regular schedule, then we'll raise this question again with MPO and ask them for some updates. Again, the purpose behind the motion was to provide some additional data to support the 2014, I think it was, recommendation for 2 ferries. We're really trying to find out if we can just update that and see where we are, rather than relying on that one. So that was the basis behind it. I will continue to follow up.
So are you withdrawing this at this point in time or tabling it or?
I think it needs to be tabled and we'll follow up once. I don't know what kind of time frame to put on, but they will need some history on for running on a regular schedule. So perhaps for December, would that make sense? No. It's running, so. That would give them 2 to 3 months. Let me say January. I would propose delaying it or whatever till the January council meeting.
Okay, further discussion? Councillor Ackley? Councillor Hilton?
No, I mean, I think it's a great motion. I do understand it's. If they do a study and they only study the winter months, they're gonna say we have capacity, so they're probably gonna need a year-round study, but. It would definitely go a long ways to update what they said in 2014.
Councillor Jablonski?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'm glad actually, Deputy Mayor Saunders decided to put us off to January. We need runtime. We need consistent runtime. We don't have that. It's hard to determine if we actually need another ferry or not. But yeah, I'd be willing to look at this again 3 or 4 months down the road, once we get some good hard data on the 4. If we get good hard data on the 4.
Okay, just for clarity, the study that you guys are referring to was 2011. And I see no value in asking MTO to conduct another study. I think the answer was identified in the 2011 study as dual ferries for 20 years, followed up by a bridge. That's an independent study. I don't see them coming back to say that 2 ferries is not the answer in that, unless it's the bridge, it's the only answer in that. So I don't believe in giving them any extra leeway. And I do wonder, Councillor Saunders, you said you spoke to senior MTO officials. I don't recall you having permission from this council to speak at that, and currently we have challenges with our communication policy in that I've been trying very diligently to respect. And that, so who did you speak with at the senior level of MTO?
Colin, who's Colin's last name?
Simmons.
No, Simmons, yes. It was an email to him.
Yeah, so my position on this is that I don't want to give an extra year to MTO for a solution that is urgently needed and has been needed for over a decade. As to the cost feasibility, that was part of their process. They were on track till 2019, till COVID hit, and then that's when they seem to have lost their way. So it has resulted at this point in time with a tremendous impact on Wolf Islanders. Everything from losing many of our working families that were very dependent on reliable ferry service, not just an 80-minute schedule, but reliable ferry service, as well as the impact its head on our paramedic services and response time to Marysville Public School closing. And that at this point in time, it's technically suspended. And that's so the impact on our community for the businesses has been real. And we should be holding the feet to the fire of MTO that has given us docks that are too small to have islanders even park their cars on so they can walk on the boat and lighten it.
Could I ask you to call the question?
Yes, I will. So the motion at this point in time is for tabling this. Okay. All those in favor? I assume Councillor Jablonski, you're the seconder because you were the seconder on the original motion, correct?
You got it, yep.
Okay. Now we're at the Aurora Council Resolution Elect Respect Campaign Support Letter.
Moved by Councillor Ackley, seconded by Councillor Holton, that the request received from the town of Aurora regarding elect respect campaign support be received and filed or endorsed.
Okay, discussion, Councillor Jablonski.
Yep, thank you, madam. I've gone through this. It's actually, yeah, just again, it's simple, be good to people. So I endorse this.
Okay, and Councillor Holton.
I would agree with that.
Hey, Councillor Saunders.
Agreed.
Councillor Ackley.
Agreed.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're at priority boarding for the Wolf Island Ferry, agriculture and other establishments. MTO has requested a clarification regarding priority boarding of the Wolf Island Ferry. Farm equipment, cattle, horses, hay, or just grain, wheat, and corn with empty trucks during the commute times of 1600 to 1900 get priority back to the island. Would it also be Fargo Store, or would it be other establishments such as the Wit, Spicer's Dock and Grill, Hotel Wolf Island receive priority boarding to get their supplies?
Through you, Madam Mayor, so staff have not received a request directly from the hotel nor the Whip or Spicers. It came to staff's attention, I'm gonna say July, August maybe, with regards to Fargo's General Store, where they had requested, and apparently prior to current staff's knowledge, the previous owner had priority boarding, when they went to get supplies, etc. My understanding for the restaurants, they have refrigerated, trucks that deliver, I'm gonna use an example like Cisco, deliver their, goods. Whereas, the owners of Fargo's are going over, I'm gonna say maybe 2 or 3 times a week to get fresh supplies. It has then been raised as well, is it just, with regards to agricultural, is it just the wheat, or is it corn and soybean, hay, whichever? And is it just going off the island, or is it the trucks coming back onto the island? When they're empty and not getting another load to come back off the island for the night. So staff have agreed to seek direction from council. With regards to the priority boarding for the Wolf Island Ferry.
So just for clarity, MTO asked us, right?
That is correct.
I didn't see any letter at any point.
No, it was an email that came through from the not the Barb, I'm not sure what her, I don't know.
Okay,
Deckhand.
it'd be nice to share that piece now. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Jablonski.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm not a farmer, so I can't comment on hay or wheat, but on my own simple naive mind, I think anything perishable or anything that causes distress to live cattle or live livestock would be, to me, permissible to go ahead, especially if you got a load of, say, livestock on a 104-day temperature, get them across faster. Again, anything perishable, a burden to livestock would be my definition, but I'm not a farmer. I can't specify more than that.
Okay, Councillor Holton.
I had a conversation with Kyle Barb one day on the dock, and they asked these questions, so I I took some time to look into it. I would say definitely farm equipment, no. It's never been, unless it's something too big and then it's a scheduling thing and, you know, maybe later at night. Cattle and horses have always been subject to weather, extreme weather conditions. We have seen like with the Roundup where prior arrangements help ease it. I could see that being good for the livestock when it's moved. But that would be up to whoever's doing it to contact MTO. Hay is not an issue. The grain, so grain, wheat, corn, soybeans. The biggest part of this is trying to get it trucked off the island, what the farmers tell me. The drivers can only drive for 13 hours. So they can just barely get 2 trips in. If they're coming from the island, we have 1 truck over there. Well, there's a couple trucks that run. They can just barely get the 2 trips in a day, where somebody in Kingston can get 3 in easily. So the outside trucks are reluctant to come there, so it's to try and get it off. And I mean, it does involve 5 to 6 million ton of grain that moves off the island. Empty trucks, they have to get back home and they'll be out of hours. So, and they usually, when it's the local guys, they come back home and they load that night so that they can go ahead and be ready to go on the first boat in the morning. I thought that it was always prime commute times. They weren't allowed. There was a time limit on it, like they had to be down 20 minutes before the ferry scheduled time, and prime commute boats for the workers, they didn't get it. So that would be something maybe you could clarify with Barb or Kyle. And as for the establishments, I mean, at this point, Fargo's the only one asked for it, so somebody else does, will have to deal with it then. My thoughts.
Okay, Councillor Saunders?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, Dan, I didn't know that number, the amount of grain or harvested products that go off. That's a huge number. Do any of those farms have drying equipment? In other words, when they have to dry, they gotta fill their bin, that's gotta get emptied. So there's a process here they gotta follow, right? Result time dependent. Do you know, is that a factor as well?
Yes, it's a big factor. Only, as far as I know, one has some drying capacity.
So I guess I would support everything you've said. Farm equipment, no. Cattle and horses, that should be a no-brainer. I'm not sure about hay, but all the harvested grain, wheat, all those crops, I believe they should get priority. The empty truck, if they could avoid, I don't know how you manage, if they could avoid that peak time, that would be my preference, but again, depending on their personal schedule. And I wasn't sure about Fargo's, why they needed it. Is it the cost of going back and forth, or is it the perishability of the product? Does anybody know?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I may, or councils can correct me if I'm wrong, but it is perishable items. So any frozen food goods, any fresh produce, anything like that.
Okay, Councillor Ackley?
For Fargo's, yes, they do have a freezer on the truck, but that company's probably delivering to 15 other places downtown, so for him to come and go as fast as possible, to be in their 13-hour realm, or I think they cut a little here or there, for run a little longer, because they're not actually driving. But, oh no, that's still, whether it's 13 or 15 hours a day, the Fargo thing's a great thing. Like the cattle, like you said, the heat, so forth, they're used to it. Horses, they're kind of used to it. You know, they gotta go find their water, they gotta go find their stuff. As for the grain and that, yeah, we do, I think there's 2 places here that have heaters. I think Murray's has one and Greg has one for sure. And Greg normally does, but his bins are full, so that's why the trucking's so much now, and they need priority, because those guys, again, if they don't schedule that guy in the proper time, you know, they're not gonna come get their stuff, and then they can't store the stuff, and then it'll be lost. For the trucking thing, for the grain and the wheat and so forth stuff, I would be 100% in favor of that part of it for sure.
Okay. agriculture is still the backbone of
Mhm.
Wolf Island. And we have, a challenge, game with our 80-minute commute now. So I have absolutely no problem with agriculture getting the priority. And that includes empty trucks that are coming back to the island to turn around and get refilled. And that, this is just, the last thing I wanna see is the loss of farmers, and over the course of my lifetime, I've certainly seen those that have moved over to the mainland, that because it, quite frankly, was simpler for them. So I'm very grateful that we actually have a trucking company actually situated on the island that has helped to keep the viability, and quite frequently I get one or two that complain about it. And I point out that, you know, I'm very grateful that we are able to produce so much service and food and that, et cetera, and that, so I have no problem with that. Also, over the course of my tenure in that, a lot of my time has been involved in making sure the services continue to come to the island, such as water and septic pump outs. And that's reality for an island. If we lose our private contractors coming over, and we certainly all know we've lost businesses that won't even for any amount of money deliver your new fridge or your new stove and that, because it just is not cost effective for them. I see no problem with making sure that we have priority for business related items, and as pointed out, Fargo's had asked for it. If in the future, the WIP turns around and asks for it, if in the future Cisco decides they're not coming and that we have to expand for any of the commercial vehicles, we need to be ready, because we need to keep the community going. And yes, I do know that displaces residents. It would be ideal if they aren't coming during the high commute times. But I can't interfere with the businesses, and I won't, and that's so, and as for the animals, of course, that goes in with the agriculture and that. And that's not the same as you deciding to bring your dog or your cat to Kingston because you wanna bring your dog or your cat to Kingston, that.
Lifestyle.
So it's livestock and that, and that unfortunately is reality, that we are working within an unfortunate limitation of transportation with one ferry that can be thrown off schedule with any emergency that comes along as well. So I think the clarification back to the MTO should be that agricultural support, and I would include farm equipment, because I see those giant tractors coming along and that, and they are coming and billing the farmers, so it was pointed out to me that it can be $800 an hour that it impacts them. I don't wanna see them sitting in a lineup. And that, as I said, this is bigger picture stuff to make sure that the community remains viable and the farms remain viable. So I have no problem with that, and I really think that we should have a carte blanche for the agricultural support, whether it's live animals, farm equipment, or the products that they have. And with the support for commercial businesses that have perishable goods that they're transporting, and I do know that the WIP often transports their stuff in their car. They just aren't big enough to own their own truck. So they are, you don't wanna have it sitting there on the dock for 2.5 hours. But they haven't asked at this point in time, but I think that MTO should be made aware that there needs to be not a restriction even at the commute times, and that I would not restrict the empty trucks, because they're coming back, as Councillor Holton pointed out, often to get another load, whether that load goes on the 5 o'clock load in the morning or they turn around and go back. I can honestly say, I've often said,
Well, let's get some clarification on what.
I've often said that I think those truckers are the hardest working members of, and certainly the longest hours that I've seen, because I've seen those trucks go by from 5 in the morning to 8, 9, and 10 o'clock at night. And I'm very grateful that we have service. So,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by Councillor Jablonski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunders, that staff provide an update to the Ministry of Transportation regarding priority boarding of the Wolf Island Ferry as per discussion with council.
so what have we gained from the discussion? Because I want to make sure that
Agricultural, certainly livestock, any
farm equipment. We have an agreement on farm equipment.
only one.
I would say no on farm equipment, cause that's too vague. Most of the big sprayers that come over are coming over to do, and they schedule themselves pretty good. I only know one incident where they missed the boat. They usually try to be there for the first boat, so. I think that's just too vague a category. So I would say no to farm equipment.
Anybody else disagree with that? I disagree with it, but I'm asking anybody else.
No, I think that's, they have a set time and they're coming and they're not, it's, you know. Unfortunately, guy might have to wait a little longer, but he's spraying and leaving and or they're bringing their
Well, it's
equipment over to cut for the next day. You know,
an additional cost,
Yeah.
that when it's having to come to the island. Okay. All right,
All those in favor?
now, public question period. We don't have anybody in person here, but we may have some questions online. I put your hand up if you can, because all I see are names. Everybody's on mute. No hands. Okay, so no questions, going once, going, folks, we got a hand, Lisa Orr. Unmute yourself, please, and make sure that she's unmuted for us.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So Lisa Oram, my question is, I guess this is for Vanessa. Have you had communications with MTO about whether or when the electrification will happen on the Marysville side? We were, yes,
Sorry, Lisa, don't mean to cut you off. So unfortunately, I've not been able to attend the last two touch point sessions as I've been out of office at meetings. I may be able to defer over to Jesse as he was on them. I'm not sure if there was an update provided with regards to that.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, there was no updates at that time, or the last two meetings regarding that from MTO.
Okay.
thank you. Just because I've noticed it's running a lot slower. And I'm just guessing, uneducated opinion, that they're going slower not to tax the generators. But that's just kind of my unofficial observation.
Yeah, and I believe I read an article on that had Shoes under the impression that it's actually being charged on the Wolf Island side, and no one's seen evidence of that at this point in time, so.
Exactly. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, now, seeing no more questions, we'll go to statements by members. Councilor Jablonski.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Well, not too much for a statement for our statements. I just want to say that we're coming down to our last year. I'm hoping we can all work together again. I always have the same speech every year and just sort of goes off the wayside, but I'm hoping this year we can make a difference for last year going together. So let's give her the best shot we got for the next 12 months, members, please.
Okay, Councilor Holton.
Nothing for me, thanks today.
Okay, Councilor Saunders.
I'll use Councillor Holton's time. I have several items, my apologies. First of all, I had an opportunity to participate in the gravel grinder. That was at gravel bike race or run, it wasn't a race, it was a ride, 40K loop. And it was extremely well done, great turnout, over 100 people. But for me, it provided me the opportunity to see all the farmland we just talked about and the amount of product or grain or cash crops that go off that island. It's just remarkable. I also had a chance to, got invited to the Limestone Bay Retreat Open House, another fabulous resource to the township. I encourage people to go and have a look and perhaps make use of it. We are the Howe Island Remembrance Day Committee continues to move forward on establishing the cenotaph. Those of you here may have seen the white base for it out there already. There's going to be a 6-foot frost placed on top of it. And it's also being co-sponsored by our fire department, our volunteer fire department, who will allow us to make use of the meeting room for a meeting read afterwards. And I have another series of updates here for you as well. Our Terry, as you may have heard already, the Terry Fox Run Committee raised $26,695. The goal was 20,000. It's just remarkable the way the group comes together and it's extremely well run and the islanders are extremely generous. the delay in the fireworks, from, which we would normally have at the, end of season barbecue. Because the fire band couldn't run those, so they went off on Saturday. It was very well attended, didn't do a head count, but there was probably upwards of 100, 150 people there, so it was really well attended. We're back into line dancing at the parish hall. We're back to jam sessions at the parish hall. You can look at on our website for the exact dates. On Friday, October the 31st, in the trail, the How Heaven Trail parking lot, will be a Halloween trunk and treat event. Where people will show up, you decorate the trunk of your car or your truck, have some treats, and it'll provide an opportunity for the kids to come and have some fun and get some treats. That'll be followed up by our first Halloween dance at the parish hall at 8 o'clock. Tickets are $10. Go on the Facebook page and you can register yourself. And the Remembrance Day ceremony itself starts at 10:30. There will be refreshments afterwards. And those refreshments are being sponsored by the Howe Island Ratepayers Association. So there will be a series of wreath layings at that event. Those people who will be laying wreaths have been notified. And we look forward to an exceptional event and support from the fire department. And I think that's it.
See, Councillor Hockley.
Well, Deputy Mayor kind of covered everything. I just like to say thanks to all the roads people and all the staff that and the taxpayers generated the money, got our roads. We're getting there. We just got a smidgen left, people. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, the Wolfounder 4 is back and running as of Saturday. The Wolfounder 3 has yet to go to dry dock. We're all holding our enthusiasm in check as we anticipate poor weather conditions in the near future. But it's out of the village at this point in time. We hope that it can be maintained going out of the village for as long as possible. CBC had a large TV thing as well as in print on Friday regarding the loss of critical information from the incident of December 4th for the ferry. They found out through Freedom of Information, despite at least 3 sets of redundant data collection, it seems that all of it was not retained by the MTO. And that is very unfortunate, because then the MTO indicated that the captain should have taken, and the crew up and the top should have taken more advanced action. Where the captain was very clear in speaking out that there was not enough power in the thrusters and the design of the keel of the boat was partly just blamed. So that's why we're cautiously holding our enthusiasm, as the winds will certainly pick up for November and December and that, and we all hope the Wolfounder 3 comes back soon, that just in case. Just a quick note on the MTO, also, if you missed it, they're all excited, they're building a 2-lane bridge to Manitoulin, because the old railway bridge has been 1 lane for nearly 100 years, and that is coming to the end of its life, and that, or at least they recognize they need to build a bridge, which is encouraging. The MTO has figured out how to build a bridge over water. That's a good piece of news. Now, the Wolffound Post Office is currently under threat because it has been removed from the protected services that had been in place for. Of course, we're all keeping track of what the dilemma of the post office services are. You'll see coming up as a notice of motion, it was information sent to me from Canada Post and that, looking for support. And that'll be coming at the next meeting, but if anybody is interested in the letter that Margaret Dakota has drafted and has sent off today, it certainly can be replicated in that, or at least the points made for any islanders, to make sure that our post office, which is more than just a delivery of mail, it's putting mail off the island as well. And as it is, we know that there are many services, Amazon, Purolator, or whatever, that may or may not come to the island anymore, but getting things off the island, it really is a crucial and vital link, and it's something that we've had for over 100 years on the island. So we need to make sure that that is protected. As I mentioned before, the Marysville Public School is technically mothballed at this point in time. The students, the one set of students moved over to Sacred Heart because they chose to move to Sacred Heart. There had always been the promise from the public school board, as long as there is one student, they would keep that school open. Unfortunately, the parents have decided that having one or two students in a school is not good learning environment. I had suggested last year that they might look at bringing in an Indigenous aspect to it. Unfortunately, they had already funded or made preparation for funding an Indigenous school in Kingston, so that's sort of sidetracked it. And this time I suggested perhaps if they considered French immersion, because we have multiple students that leave the island every day for French immersion. And they might be able to draw from both public and Catholic on that, so they took that under advisement. I have no update to provide over the Horns Ferry that many people have been speculating up, down, and sideways, so that's that. Howe Island Ferry, there's no news other than the planned dock repair that I'm aware of in January. And the road work is essentially done. The lines may well not appear to next year because apparently the new road has to settle in or else the lines end up crooked. And that, there's been different people that have contacted me regarding potential of a senior center and that, and their interest. So I've encouraged them all to contact council when we're talking about funding pieces here, and that there are multiple provincial funding opportunities that could be accessed for something like that. Some of them have been eyeing the mothballed school. I said, you know, irregardless if it's a worthwhile project, get yourselves a committee together, make your proposal, see what we can do for you, see how we can help with getting you any grants. A strategic plan, I'm still hopeful that we get that into the budget this year. And that, which would include everything from ferries to potentially water in the village should be looked at. But again, that goes to the strategic plan perspective. But as we move forward in that, I've read today that we don't have success in keeping the water delivery or the septic pump outs coming to the island, given our ferry challenges. Because we are entirely dependent, many people on that. And I will say I catch my water via rainwater and I have a septic system, so I'm not one of them. But I am keenly aware that even our businesses, our schools and our churches all depend on this, let alone many others. So lots of people have always talked about it. We need to get onto it. Okay, so that's that. And then we have any announcements? I think most of the announcements got included in that. Are there any other announcements from anyone? Seeing none, we'll go to notice of motions, and that is going to be my notice regarding the Canada Post mandate review. And that'll be coming to the next meeting. It is basically worded by the Canada Post, but when I read it, I'm in full support of it. So I'll be looking for a seconder if somebody wants to second it. And we get to bylaws now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by Councillor Hilton, seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunders, that first and second reading be granted to bylaw 023-2025, being a bylaw to provide for a records management policy and record retention schedule for the Township of Frontenac Islands.
Okay. Councillor Jablonski.
No more questions, I support this.
Okay, Councillor Holton,
Yeah, no questions.
Councillor Saunders,
Approved.
and Councillor Ackland. Approved. Okay, on your first page where it says bylaw, it says records management policy and tension periods instead of retention. So a little typo there. Get it clear?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, if I may, on the bylaw itself.
Yeah, the bylaw itself, and that at the third paragraph, that's it.
Record retention. Oh, sorry, right there. Yep.
Okay. All right, now on definitions of C, you have destroy means the process of eliminating or deleting data, documents and records so the recorded member information no longer exists. I didn't see the best clarification as to why that is needed when I consider of especially the method of retention that we have now for our records. They can be put on a thumbnail drive. It's different from what we've had before, so. We have hard copies and things of that nature, but. It's something that I hope you give a lot of clarity as to exactly what point. It's going to be declared never to be in existence again, because going back on records of the past have value for even historical societies. On another page, we have page 3, information copies of widely distributed materials such as minutes, agendas, and newsletters, unless the information has been annotated to reflect significant input or for other programs. That's one of the groups going to be destroyed, I believe. And I don't think we should ever be destroying a copy of minutes, agendas, and newsletters and that.
So, Madam Mayor, just for clarification,
Yep.
the originals are not destroyed. They
Good.
are kept forever.
Oh.
It is if there is a copy that has been provided to someone.
Out to the
it's-
community.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect, okay. And then another area is point 7, the Councillor Holton, I'm talking.
Yeah.
Copies of publications, Councillor Jablonski. Copies of publications such as published reports, administrative manuals, telephone directories, catalogs, pamphlets, and other periodicals are part of that list. So you're saying that we would always keep a copy of our published reports and administrative manuals and periodicals?
Any policies, procedures, our originals are all kept hard copy.
But I'm thinking like a published report, like our 2011 document by the MTO, that's a public.
No, so as long as we have an original, that original will be kept here. But if there's like 20 copies of it, we don't need 20 copies of that same.
And where appropriate in taking into account principles governing the disposition of official records, records management coordinator reschedule the disposition of any records. If I'm boring anybody because this is a bylaw, this is a bylaw, so I recommend you pay attention and contribute if you want. To the subsection B, the section for up to 1 year or later for the scheduled disposition date. I just want a little bit of clarity on what that particular piece goes around.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
That's on page 7-8, and it's the first D at the top. And it's in regarding of the disposition of records, and that suddenly we can delay it for up to 1 year.
Matter, point of order,
No, I'm waiting for a response from the CEO.
I think you have to respond to the point of order. So,
We're in the middle of a conversation. As soon as I get a response from her, then I'll respond to your point of order.
okay, I would suggest you check your, Robert Lewis border, but go ahead.
Yes, and I would suggest that we should have had additional training when it was recommended by the Integrity Commissioner, but this council did not support that.
Well.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. I'm just trying to, get this. Sorry. So the department will notify the records manager in writing before the scheduled disposition, whether any of the records included in the disposition notice need to be retained past scheduled disposition. Okay, so, your question is, under what circumstance would, say, I, as a department head, request that a record? So I can't come up with an example off the top of my head. I'm just trying to think of, because everything that would be destroyed and or is maintained permanently or has a retention period is with respect to the Tom Rims classification. Okay. So, perhaps Jesse or I have prepared a report, maybe prime example would be, deputy mayor's motion that it be deferred for yet a year. So we've presented a report, under the Tom Rim schedule that could be, classified or earmarked to be destroyed after 1 year. I don't think that it would be, but I'm just trying to provide an example to you. So whereas that, particular report has not been disposed of as yet, or action has not been taken on it, it's been tabled or deferred, then I could request that that particular report not be, as per the schedule, destroyed until a 1 year period kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that answers the question you're asking.
It does for this point in time that, and it's important that the community is aware of this being brought forward. Now, speaking to Councillor Saunders and that, bylaws are,
So Madam, I haven't brought forward my motion.
okay, but I'm gonna speak to you first for the interruption. Because this has been a repeated pattern with you, that when we get to bylaws, that you try to cut it short. And this is not the time to cut things short.
Madam Mayor, point of personal privilege.
Yes.
I consider those to derogatory comments. And I'd ask that you rescind them.
I will not, because I have it on record as to how many times I've been interrupted when we get to the bylaw section. And I've been asked to submit my comments in writing rather than have it orally addressed. And it's repeatedly been done by you, oftentimes by urging that the time is going long. These are bylaws. They do not get skated over.
If I can state my point of order.
Yes,
I believe what you're recommending or asking for is an amendment to the bylaw.
no, this is the first draft.
This is the first draft.
Clarification, the draft had been presented before. This is before council for first and second reading.
Second reading.
Yes.
Okay.
So then I guess my question is, based on your comments, what are you expecting to happen?
I'm expecting to have you consider the comments. And that the public is aware that there are comments made so that they may further decide whether or not they have any input on it. This is the time that there should be discussion towards this.
I understand that.
Yes,
So are you directing the CAO to make those changes and bring those back to the next council meeting?
not at this point in time.
Okay. So it's just discussion. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, then I have.
All right.
So Madam Mayor, the motion is on the table, but I will reread. Moved by Councillor Halton, second by Deputy Mayor Saunders, that first and second reading be granted to bylaw number 023-2025, being a bylaw to provide for a records management policy and record retention schedule for the township of Frontenac Islands.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Now we're at bylaw 024-2025, confirmatory bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Ackley, second by Councillor Jablonski, that three readings and final passage be granted to bylaw number 024-25, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Now, that the regular meeting of council held on October 14th, 2025, adjourn at 12:50.
Moved by Councillor Ackley, second by Councillor Jablonski, that the regular meeting of council held October 14th, 2025 adjourns.
All those in favor? Carried.
Thank you. Gentlemen, please do not leave